Okay, welcome to the Creators interview. Today we have a special guest, Emma, and we are talking about sustainability in Bolivia, and also we are staying with Heidi, with Emma's place, the Colibri camping lodge. It's really eco-lodge. It's really a nice place, and Emma will also talk about that. So let's start. So first of all, could you introduce yourself and your business and the Colibri camping eco-lodge, and how did you start it?
Okay, perfect. Well, my name's Emma Donlan. I'm from the UK originally, but I've lived here in Bolivia now for 20 years. And I originally came as a volunteer. And over the past 20 years I've been working in development in different aid agencies. So really Colibri is about, it was an opportunity for me and my husband Rolando to think about what could we do in our own community that would be sustainable and to be bringing about benefits for our community and for the children and our neighbours. We originally started, over the past 12 years, we've been running a volunteer programme called Up Close Bolivia, and we've been receiving volunteers from all over the world who've been working on different social community projects. So Colibri camping originally began almost like an overflow when we had certain times of the year when we had many volunteers and they began to stay in tents, and it began to kind of grow organically, and we really saw this as an opportunity to think about what does sustainable business look like, and not only about aid projects being able to bring sustainability, but how can we run a good business for good. Yeah,
that's really nice to hear about how the sustainable business is also working, because it's really important to have a sustainable business. Also, the aid is not it's not working if everything is aid.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about the ecological solutions in this your camping site, and about I also heard about you have educational services also here.
Yeah. So as you can see, we live on a beautiful mountainside, and it was really to think how can we develop the mountainside in a way which enriches and enhances the place where we live. So when we began with the campsite, it was actually quite a barren piece of land. There were no trees there. So the first thing that we began to do was to plant trees, and we planted over 1,000 trees with my children and with Rolando and with neighbours, and also looking at what kinds of plants to use. So to look at plants that would stop erosion on the mountainside. And then that we probably spent about 3 years just planting trees, kind of getting the basics right. And then we began to think, well, what's the kind of infrastructure that we want to build? And we didn't want to build anything that was heavy or something that perhaps we weren't thinking about the building where it would be in 30 years, but more about what this nature would look like. So you can see the buildings that we put, they're very, very lightweight. Ecologically, they have a very light footprint. And we wanted things that would be quite novel, that would attract people. So therefore, we began to build the teepees and the cabins. And I think one of the greatest things when you're starting this kind of project, sometimes your ambitions are big, but the actual money, the resources that you have are small, and that's a gift because it makes you more creative, and it means that every penny, every cent you have to spend in a sustainable way. So we use a lot of recycled materials. For example, you can see that we use green roofing as well, wine bottle windows that Rolando always jokes about, that he had to sacrifice himself emptying those wine bottles to make the windows. But sustainably socially as well. The people that helped us build the campsite were all our neighbours and friends from around this community. So there's a great sense of ownership around Colibri camping, and a great sense of pride from our neighbours that they're very happy that this project actually is located in their neighbourhood, because many of them have helped us build it over the years.
Yeah, thank you. It's really interesting. It's really wonderful. It's like a neighbor project.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's really nice to how to also unite the neighborhood in some project. Yeah. Okay, and I would like to hear more about your volunteer work also. We have volunteer work projects that you're involved in. You have said you have been 20 years in that area, so that's quite a long time.
Yeah, for us it's a real inspiration for us to receive volunteers from all across the world, and we've seen over the past 10-15 years the transformation that these people have brought into our community. As a professional aid worker, sometimes in my job when I'm not volunteering, often you get funding for 3 years and then you move on. You never see the long-term development, and sometimes those funds, maybe they're not even interested in that long term, they're only looking at getting from A to B. The agenda is driven more by external funders, whereas with Up Close Bolivia, our volunteer programme, the agenda is completely driven by the community itself. We follow their path like a river, and when we start the year, every year we begin planning. We bring all the community together, they meet here at Colibri camping, and we dream together, what would we like to do this year? And often when we do our evaluation at the end of the year, we might have reached our dreams, but we might have done many more things, because we're not tied to external funds. We're tied to the energy and the ideas of our community. So volunteers come, and they're not there to tell local people what to do or how to do it, but they're there more to enrich what they're already doing, to give them support. So we support many different projects. We work in the community nursery that has 80 children, the Valley of the Moon nursery, that Rolando and I also helped set up with our neighbours 16 years ago. And that's sustainability, the fact that it's still running now at 16 years. And if we're talking about resources, resources is energy, resources is commitment, and resources is having the strength to pull together, because it's not been easy. At first people said to us, you can't have a community nursery run by Indigenous women. They don't even know how to read and write. How can they look after children? But we're still here 16 years on. We also work in the local schools, teaching English, but through a sense of it. Our focus isn't about grammar and actually the mechanics of the language. It's about giving young people a pride in this beautiful place where they live, because tourism is a huge potential here, so that they can communicate and to be able to share the beauty of the natural environment with other people that come to visit this area, and for that they need English to communicate. We work in the local football school. Again, our focus here is on girls football and on girls empowerment through sport. And this has been incredibly successful. This valley is now known as having the best female football players, and it's where the professional clubs come to seek out their female football players. We work in the local zoo. Now often when people in Europe hear the word zoo, it's like, but this zoo is more like an animal refuge. All the animals there have been recovered from being trafficked. So our volunteers work there on animal well-being, whether that's psychological well-being for the animals, or nutritional, or many different ways, and conservation education for Bolivian children that come to visit the zoo. And we also work with equine therapy for children with disability. There's a lot of social exclusion here in Bolivia. Often children with autism or other disabilities, they're excluded or discriminated against, and this equine therapy centre is a wonderful inclusive project. And finally we work in a local children's a local children's residential home for children living in families that have suffered from problems of substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs. But throughout all this, you know, sustainability is key, because sustainability will only happen if it's led and born from the community. And you know, often when I look at other kind of more formal projects, and they say, oh, we need to do a workshop and we need $1,000 to do a workshop, that's when I know it's not sustainable, because the resources are already in the community. If we start building up from what a community already has and its capacities, we're already halfway there. Too often development projects think of these poor people, they need so much, but we should turn it around and say, well, look at everything they have. They have social relations, they have knowledge, they have experience, and when you start building it up from what they already have, yeah, we're already nearly there.